What's My Line? Brought to you by Kellogg's. Kellogg's Cereals. The best to you each morning from Kellogg's of Battle Creek. Now let's all play What's My Line? And now, live from New York, let's meet our What's My Line panel. First, our actress panelist, who opens tomorrow night in the play Old Acquaintance in Vineland, Ontario, Canada, Miss Arlene Francis.
Thank you, and now I'd like to produce actor, director, producer, and a very nice man around the house, Martin Gabel.
On my left, a girl whose famous father, Jim Kilgallen, had Jaipur to win the Belmont Stakes yesterday, Miss Dorothy Kilgallen.
We don't have many slave owners around these parts, but we have one, and he's going to appear on my left, and I'm the slave. I'm spending my vacation in a little dark hole working on a book for him, and his name is Bennett, Cerf, and his publishing house is Random House.
He's slave away. And here comes our panel moderator on his way to Pittsburgh on his water pollution problems, which seem to occupy a great deal of his time, Mr. John Charles Daly.
Well, Bennett's absolutely right, and it's a subject about which I am no expert, in which I'm very interested in. And we're going to Pittsburgh to talk about a particular kind of the pollution of the water of the nation, the acid drainage from mines. And when I get back next Sunday, I'll just talk for a half an hour. Is that all right, Bennett?
Great.
Martin Gabel, it's nice to see you with us again, sir.
Thank you, John.
Trust you have an interesting half hour. We have some interesting occupations and some nice folks who brought them to the theater. We'll also have a famous mystery guest before my friends on the panel a little bit later in the program. And we'll meet our first challenger after. And now let's meet our first challenger. Will you enter and sign in, please? Claire Dower. Is it Miss or Mrs. Dower? Mrs. Dower, where are you from?
Spotswood, New Jersey.
Spotswood, New Jersey. Nice to have you with us. Mrs. Dower, may I present the panel? Now, would you join me over here, please? Do you know how we keep score, Mrs. Dower? In that event, we'll let the audience here in the theater and the audience at home know exactly what your line is. All right, panel, we will tell you that Mrs. Dower is salaried and deals in a service, and we'll begin the general questioning with Bennett Cerf.
Mrs. Dower, does the service that you perform require some special skill or dexterity on your part?
Yes.
Is it the kind of skill that you can learn in a school or college?
Yes, you might.
I would say substantially you can, Bennett. It does require a specific area of knowledge. You don't necessarily have to get it in college, but it certainly would help if you had acquired these basic learning skills in college.
I see. Mrs. Dower, do you ever exhibit your skill before audiences?
No. No, I wouldn't say so.
1 down and 9 to go, Miss Francis.
Mrs. Dower, is your service anything that might be of benefit to the panel?
Well, I think, if I may, what we would have to say there is, under certain circumstances, if you came within the purview of the service where it is rendered, if it was rendered skillfully and properly, you would certainly benefit because it was well done.
Thank you, John. You want to recite the second verse, or shall I just go on now? Is there anything scientific about your work, Mrs. Dower?
No.
2 down and 8 to go, Mr. Gabel.
Is your work in any way connected with either a federal or a state government, Mrs. Dower?
No.
3 down and 7 to go, Miss Kilgallen.
Do you work for any non-profit-making organization?
Yes.
Is it a city or county government?
Yes.
Is it in the area of Spotswood, New Jersey?
Yes.
Are you the mayor?
No.
4 down and 6 to go, Mr. Cerf.
But, Mrs. Dower, does your job in Spotswood, is it a job to which you are appointed rather than elected?
Yes.
Would you come under civil service in the job
No.
that you do?
5 down and 5 to go, Miss Francis.
I don't know what comes under civil service. Give you an idea of the trouble I'm in.
She could be a judge.
Would you like to have a conference?
I don't know where the police go.
No. Do you wear something other than what you are wearing ordinarily when you are purveying your services, Mrs. Spotswood? Mrs. Spotswood, how have you been, Arlene? You are Miss Spotswood, USA, and I want to present you with a cup. Mrs. Dower.
You mean...
What did I ask?
I was going to say, would you like to do that all over again?
Yes.
You got a no, so you better rephrase it.
Mrs. Dower, how are you? Do people come before you when you are purveying your service?
Yes.
Do you help them in some way?
Yes, I would say that they might, on some occasions, not necessarily accept it immediately, but I think in the long pull, we...
Do you have something to do with law and order, Mrs. Dower?
No, I wouldn't think so.
Nothing
No.
to do with law and order.
Well, I would say here that Mrs. Dower technically has a right to exercise certain functions of law.
I see.
This
Are you...
is technically allowed to her in the normal pursuit of her occupation. She does not exercise this authority, however.
Jolly
so that you
good.
get a qualified yes.
Are you ever represented in court? Would you be sitting in court at any time, Mrs. Dower?
No.
That makes it 6 down and 4 to go, Mr. Gabel.
Have you anything to do with the control of children in any way?
No.
7 down and 3 to go, Miss Kilgallen.
May I have a conference?
You may have 30 seconds for a conference.
What do we got?
Oh, she's not a Toronto.
She's
not a
We've
judge.
got a
Not
very
a
pretty
lawyer.
girl.
Not a district attorney? Well, that would have to do with law and order.
Maybe she has to do
How about a
with
prison warden?
Well, that
maybe
would be law and
licenses
order.
of some kind.
Yes, we left that out. She could do that and speak closed. Do you have anything to do with the giving out of licenses?
No.
8 down and 2 to go, Mr. Cerf.
dear.
Mrs. Dower, we can rule out prisons. You said you had nothing to do with law and order.
Yes.
Is Spotswood anywhere near the sea?
No.
You have nothing to do with anything connected with the athletics.
No.
9 down and 1 to go, Miss Francis.
Do you... Only one to go?
Yeah.
I'm so embarrassed. Ask what? Do you deal with anything other than the human race in your job?
No. 10 down and no more to
This
go.
wasn't a dog catcher.
Probably the prettiest tax collector you've all met.
Oh.
The tax collector for the borough, in which Spotswood is the center, and 6,000 people in residence.
And what does she have the authority to do that she doesn't do?
Well,
Arrest?
actually, technically, under the charter,
Yes.
Mrs. Dower can go and get the delinquent taxpayer and deliver said delinquent taxpayer to the sheriff for his custody. She has the right of arrest, in other words. Yeah, on personal taxes, that is.
Have you ever done it, Mrs. Dower?
No.
As with all wealthy men, John Daly knows all about what tax collectors can do.
That's the nicest thing's been said about me for years. Martin, I'm very pleased you're here, and thank you, Mrs. Dower. Nice to have you with us, and what's my life? There's a certain contradiction in terms there, though, I must point out, Martin. If you know all about the taxes you have to pay, you can't be wealthy. You know that. Let's meet our next contestant. Will you enter and sign in, please? Fred Thomas. Where are you from?
Longmont, Colorado.
Longmont, Colorado. That's nice to have you with us. Mr. Thomas, may I present our panel? Would you join me over here, Mr. Thomas? Do you know how we keep score?
Yes.
Fine, then we'll let the audience in the theater and the audience at home know exactly what your line is. All right, panel, Mr. Thomas is self-employed, deals in a service, and we'll begin the general questioning with Arlene Francis.
Do you sometimes work out of doors?
Yes.
Do you work with something other than the human race on occasion?
Yes.
Yes? Something in the animal kingdom,
Yes.
A four-footed animal?
Yes.
An animal larger than a dog?
Yes.
An animal that is found on farms?
Yes.
An animal that anybody might, eat? Yes, yum. An animal that anybody might have eaten on this panel? We eat everything, I'd like to add.
I think it's broad enough so we can say yes.
Is the animal one that, does it belong to either the hog or the pig family?
No.
No, that's one down and 9 to go. Mr. Gabel.
Has it anything to do with beef, this animal?
Yes.
Does your job directly have to do with either cows or bulls or steers?
Yes.
Do you in any way control those animals?
No.
By control, what do you mean, Martin?
Well, if he were a cowboy, he'd be on a... horse.
I see. In that general sense, we would say no. 2
I'm
down
not
and 8
old
to
man,
go.
I didn't try to get out of it.
Miss Kilgallen.
You have a connection with some type of beef.
Yes.
I can say that again.
So do we all, yes. You're not registering a beef, I hope, Miss
No,
Kilgallen.
not yet,
Bennett.
John. No, John, you will leave those things where they
Well,
belong.
we won't be
of course.
cowed by it anyway. We'll say that.
We won't be steered wrong by it either.
That exhausts
That's
it,
not
I
a lot
think,
of bull either, I'll say that.
Mr. Thomas, do you come in direct contact with these animals?
Yes.
Do you raise them?
No.
That's 3 down and 7 to go, Mr. Cerf.
Mr. Thomas, the animals are alive when you come in contact with them.
Yes.
They're still alive after you've come in contact with them.
Yes.
Do you do anything to improve their condition?
Yes.
Do you clean them?
No.
That makes it 4 down and 6 to go. Miss Francis.
Is there some particular part of the animal that is more interesting to you than other parts of the animal?
Yes.
Yes? Is that part... I was going to say from the waist up, but it sounds so silly.
And the funny thing, I was scared to death. That's what you were going to say.
Is it?
I quit. I don't know where a cow's waist is.
Probably wouldn't interest anybody but a bull. Is it part do you have some contact with the head of the animal?
No.
No, that's 5 down and 5 to go, Mr.
That's
Gabel.
interesting.
My wife has so overwhelmed me.
The story of our life.
I admit it.
You figure out what's between the head and the waist.
I'd like to get off here quickly. You have nothing to do with branding any of these animals.
No.
6 down and 4 to go, Miss Kilgallen.
May I get just something to clarify, Mr. Thomas? When you have dismissed the head, you have not also dismissed the neck, have you?
No.
You could possibly have some association with the neck of these cattle?
In some sense.
In some sense.
Well, wait a minute. I gotta look at this. Yes, sir. Well, Dorothy, this is a little difficult. I would say, so as not to mislead you, I'm perhaps going to go a little bit too far. The relationship that Mr. Thomas has with the neck is one that is, shall we say, only incidentally interesting to what he really does.
Oh, Dorothy.
It's a bet.
Maybe he does tonsillectomies.
Then he'd have to go in the head, wouldn't he? Oh. Now, wait a minute.
Get out.
Now, we've said, we know that he touches the animal, does he not?
Yes.
You are not a veterinarian. May I assume you are not a veterinarian? Or you would be called upon to touch other areas at other times, would you not?
That's right. You can assume that.
Don't think they have specialists that go that far, do they? It sounds to me as if he knits little shawls for them. I can't figure out anything else. Do you have anything to do with something that covers the animal?
No.
7 down and 3 to go, Mr. Cerf.
Mr. Thomas, do you sometimes have something to do with the animal's legs or hooves?
Yes.
Would it be particularly concerning their hooves?
Yes.
Well, now, cows don't wear horseshoes, obviously.
Unless they're trying to pass.
Bennett, you're awfully
You make
hot.
some kind of footwear for cows.
No.
No, I'm going to throw all the cards over because I think Bennett's gotten so. Actually, Mr. Thomas is a cow manicurist. He takes care of the hooves which grow and they get tender on cows, affect their milk giving, and he goes about twice a year to the average cow.
What does he do for the neck, John?
He has to put them in a rig, you see, to hold them stable while he's doing this. And I was trying to convey to Dorothy there's nothing essential. It's purely incidental, but he does have to touch their necks to get them in the rig. But basically, he cuts cows'
Toenails.
hoof snails, I guess. hoof snails. But it's done twice a year. The interesting part to me was that this can sorely affect the amount of milk that a cow will give because the feet get so tender. And they won't stand up if their feet are sore. Like a woman, I mean like any human being. Thank you very much, Mr. Thomas. Hope you enjoyed your visit. It was nice to have you. We'll meet tonight's mystery guest in just a moment, but first, here is a word from our sponsor. We come to the special feature of our program, the appearance of our mystery challenger, for which the panel is always blindfolded. Blindfolds all in place, panel?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Good. Will you enter mystery challenger and sign in, please? As you know, panel, one question at a time, in turn moving clockwise, and we'll begin with Martin Gabel.
Are you in the show business?
Yes, I am.
Miss Kilgallen?
Are you primarily known for your work in Hollywood pictures?
No.
1 down and 9 to go, Mr. Cerf.
Do you ever sing for your supper?
Yes, I do.
Miss Francis?
Are you known primarily as a singer?
Yes.
Mr. Gabel?
Are you in a musical play now on Broadway?
No.
2 down and 8 to go, Miss Kilgallen.
Oh, yes.
No.
Not in a musical play. Are you Connie Francis?
No.
3 down and 7 to go, Mr. Cerf.
Have you been in a motion picture within the past few months that has been shown in one of the big theaters along the Broadway sector.
No, I haven't.
4 down and 6
You
to
have
go,
not?
Miss Francis. That was no.
Are you best known as a recording star?
Yes.
Mr. Gabel.
Are you Peggy Lee?
No.
5 down and 5 to go, Miss Kilgallen.
Have you ever worked Basin Street East?
No.
6 down and 4 to go, Mr. Cerf.
Do you usually do your singing alone rather than with a partner?
Yes.
Are you more of a hotel room singer? I mean, you know. I mean, are you more, do you mostly sing in hotels or clubs rather than in the theater or in pictures?
Yeah, yes and no.
Yes and no, I think would be the right answer to that, Mr.
Have you a
Gabel.
show coming up on Broadway this fall?
No.
7 down and 3 to go, Miss Kilgallen.
Have you ever played the copa?
Yes.
Mr. Cerf.
Are you Patty Page?
No.
8 down
No.
and 2 to go, Miss Francis.
I'm going to pass.
Mr. Gabel.
Are you now appearing in a club or a hotel in New York?
No.
9 down and 1 to go, Miss Kilgallen.
I'm going to pass, Mr. Cerf. I can't think of any.
Did you ever appear in New Faces?
No.
10 down and none to go, and you may unmask and say good evening to Miss Rosemary Clooney.
I must say, Miss Clooney sneaked into town without any of us knowing
That was
it.
the whole idea.
That was the whole idea. And I'm tickled to death to see Miss Rosemary here because, as you all know, last night you sang at the $250 a plate dinner in Washington for the President of the United States and Mr. McCluskey.
For a fellow Philadelphian, Mr. Matt McCluskey, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yes.
Wonderful.
Who was going to be our ambassador to Ireland.
Yes.
Actually, it was an interesting dinner because I think probably you can check the facts here, but my understanding is that Mr. McCluskey invented the $100 a plate dinner when he was treasurer of the Democratic Party, and they paid honor to him last night, and they just doubled it and added 50 for
Only
good
thing
measure.
that's going up I've heard about in a long time.
Don't
Did you
be-
sing any Irish songs, Rosemary?
I should have done, Arlene. I didn't, though. No. And the Lord Mayor was there, Dublin. I should have had a few up my sleeve, but I didn't. I missed the boat.
Anything you sing is good.
Thank you.
Well, you're going to leave for Europe tomorrow?
Yes, Europe tomorrow. I'm going to sing for Princess Grace for the Red Cross Gala.
Ah,
The end
in
of the
Monaco.
Yes.
Oh, that's wonderful. Well, we managed to finally fool them. I'm tickled to death. They just didn't even think you were in town.
She's very foolish on her
Wasn't
voice.
it kind of shy, though? Yeah. Know me for shouting.
Well, we have 2 things to do. One, to thank you for coming up here from Washington and
I'm
giving us a
delighted,
chunk
John.
of your, I know, short time before you have to travel again. Have a wonderful trip.
Thank you
and
so
a good
much.
summer. Nice
Thank
to
you.
see you, Miss Rosemary. Bye-bye. We'll be back after this word from our alternate. It should be noted for the record that Rosemary Clooney is going over to do more than sing at the gala for Princess Grace in Monaco. She's going to spend a wonderfully productive summer also visiting our Army bases overseas. And on that happy note, good night, Miss Francis.
Good night, John. And good night, dear Martin. See you soon.
Very soon, Arlene. Happy Ontario.
Thank you, darling.
Good night, Dorothy.
Good night, Martin. Good night, Bennett.
Pollute that water or unpollute it, John. Good night.
Good night, Ben. I'll do the best I can. At least I'll try to understand a little bit more about it, which takes a bit of doing. And may you all have a wonderful week, and I look forward to seeing you next Sunday when I shall give my dissertation on mine acid drainage, and it'll be very interesting, I promise you. And good night, ladies and gentlemen, and thanks for being with us on What's My Line?
What's My Line is a CBS television network production in association with Mark Goodson and Bill Todman. This is Johnny Olson speaking. Don't throw litter on the road. Keep a litter bag in your car and use it. That's how you can help keep America clean and beautiful.